Welcome back to Heroes Next Door, guys. Due to the coronavirus, some of the fire companies have stepped up to the plate. They were able to film for us. This is Royersford Fire Company. They're going to be going over engines. I appreciate their work.
Hi, I'm Dan Miller from the Royersford Fire Department. I'm here with Adam Alberico. We're here to give you a tour of the engine, give you a little bit something different to do on this I guess COVID-19 day while we spend another day social distancing, staying away from everyone. We want to give parents a chance to take a break from trying to entertain the kids. We figured we'd help out with that. Here at the Royersford Fire Department, we were going to give you different tours of our different vehicles. We're going to start out with our 2019 Pierce Sabre engine. Truck came in last year. It's a brand new truck built by Pierce Manufacturing Company. It came out of their plant in Florida. It's our main pumper. This would be the first vehicle to go out. A lot of times it goes out on assist. It's our second out piece for house fires. It can be used for trash fires, car fires. Basically, this is our firefighting engine. This truck has a 1,500 gallon a minute pump. Bathtub holds about 40 to 80 gallons of water. So you figure we can move probably 20 bathtubs full of water a minute with this truck. And sometimes you can do actually a little bit more than the rated. It's a small engine, only 750 horsepower. I say small because when you get into the bigger trucks, it's a bigger engine, but this truck really does well moving around town. It's a shorter truck. If you look at it, you're gonna be like, hey, that's the little fire engine. But with the little fire engine, in Royersford, you see a lot of narrow streets. Some of the turns are really tight. This truck handles very well for us in town. First place we're going to take a look is inside where the officer would sit on the fire truck. The officer is basically the parent. They're the person who's responsible for the crew. They will talk to our dispatcher. They will tell the driver where we would like to park most of the time if there isn't already another officer on the scene of the call. If you look up inside, you're going to see a couple of different things. Over to the right, we have different types of meters. We have a meter that's called a thermal imaging camera. Thermal imaging camera helps us find hot spots and where fires haven't gone out, or if we're looking for a fire inside of a wall, it helps locate it. To the left of that, you see a taller meter that has a white card on it. That's called a gas detector. And what we use that for, the gas meter, we'll take that in if somebody thinks they have bad air in their house. Not if dad passes wind, but it's more a case of if we have a problem with a heater, we can come in and we can make sure that the air is clean. To the left of that, you see the cool box with the number pad and the strobe light on top. That's the key secure box, which is used for a secure system that the fire department uses called a Knox box system. Only certain people in the firehouse have access to that box, but what we can do with that box is we can gain access to businesses. If we get to a business, we don't have to break a door down to get inside to check to make sure there isn't a problem when we get fire alarms in the middle of the night. The red bag you see is for the air mask that the officer would wear. We carry flashlights. Actually, we never have enough light when we're running on the fire scene at night, or even during the day if we get inside of a building where we don't have electric or anything like that. Then we'll move back to the jump seat. The jump seat on the fire truck is where the firefighters sit. This is the spot where you're going to find your worker bees. These are the men and women who are actually going to get off the truck and do most of your firefighting. Each seat is outfitted with an air pack. The air packs are used when we go into an area where we have bad air, whether it's some type of gas leak, whether it's a fire. And these air packs were just purchased last year and are pretty much state-of-the-art air packs. We're going to go through every compartment on the truck, starting out with the first one on the rear of the cab. We have a fire extinguisher in there. Yes, some flyers are small enough that we do put out with the fire extinguisher. Next place we're going to go, we call these cross lays. Cross lays because they run across the fire truck. There's two on here. Each one is 150 feet long. And this is typically what we will use if we have a fire in a house, a car fire. Most of the time, car fire will take the bumper line off the front, but this is one of our main hoses that we use. Up here, called a junction box. Junction box is basically a glorified extension cord. Mom and dad may have an extension cord that they pull out of the house. Theirs is maybe only 10 feet. That's 150 feet long. You're gonna see that 150 feet is a lot of what we do as our basic working length off of the truck. Up top on the truck, there is a nozzle that's sticking up. That's called a deck gun. The deck gun, we can flow water without having to move the truck or pull any hose. We'll do that if we get to a warehouse, a larger type building. They call that a master stream. So if we were in a master stream operation, that's what we would use. Next thing we go, ladders. Almost every single fire engine that you will see has a ladder on it, because you're going to get to places where you need to get up higher, or if you need to move around. Ladders. This is a 14-foot roof ladder. Behind the roof ladder is a 24-foot extension ladder, and we function with each other to do different jobs. So if we need to climb to the roof to get to the top of the roof to check on something, the roof ladder, the ground ladder, the 24-foot ladder will be placed on the ground like this. The firefighter will then carry the roof ladder up the 24-foot ladder and pull that up to the roof. It's actually a pretty fun evolution in school when we do it, and fortunately we don't have to do it a whole lot in real life. Up top, behind where it says Royersford Fire Department, there's a larger hose. We'll show you when we get to the end, but we can actually use this truck to take water out of the river and blow it onto a fire, or a lot of times what we do is we use it for practice. We'll go down to the river, pull the water out of the river, and we'll hook the pumper up to either the ladder or the rescue and practice moving water that way. Next compartment, we have what's called a smoke ejector. Smoke ejector helps us bring out the bad air if we get somewhere. Sometimes that can be used to push good air into a place as well. These other boxes, they're very similar to the box that I pointed to on top of the truck. They're called junction boxes. They're basically ways that we can plug in multiple outlets at the same time off the truck. And we also have to bring our own extension cords sometimes. Not quite as long as the one that you'll find up on the truck. In here, we carry extra air bottles that match up with our air packs that Adam showed you up in the cab. In this compartment, we have a bin that we use to distribute oil dry. So what we'll do is we'll put oil dry into buckets. If we get somewhere where we have a leak of some type or a spill, we can use the oil dry to help control that leak and soak up what is leaking out on the road. Typically it is out on the road, but there are other times. In here, this is our forestry equipment. There are still a lot of places in the Royersford area that are fields. So we have smaller hose that's easier to move around, and we get out. And what we can do then is hook these hoses together. We can hook it up with this piece of equipment, and we can set everything up to go fight a forest fire if we need to. Come around to the back of the truck. Open. It's kind of like a hidden compartment back here. This cover on the back actually helps hold the hose onto the back of the truck so it doesn't fall off while we're driving down the road. It's also part of the system that keeps all the hose covered so the hose doesn't get wet while it's riding down the road. And you may say, hey, your hose is going to get wet when you go to a fire. What's so important about keeping it dry? If you keep it dry, it's going to last longer because you're not going to get any type of mold or mildew build up in here. This is 1,200 feet of large diameter hose. This is the hose that would go to a fire hydrant normally, and then we would stop at the fire hydrant going into the fire, put the Oasis valve on the hydrant, and then we would go to the fire. The next fire truck would come in and hook up to the Oasis valve and make sure that we have water coming down to the fire scene. In here we have 150 feet of attack line here, which is similar to the crosslight actually, and then we have an extra attack line, and then we have a larger 2.5-inch line. We always say if you have a bigger fire, you need bigger water. So with a bigger hose, we can bring bigger water. In here, another fan, as well as some cones if we're working out on the roadway. Safety first, as far as that goes. We want to make sure the people who are driving see us before they get to us. People do miss us while they're driving down the road because they become distracted. And behind the cones, there's a strainer that we use on the larger hose that I was talking about. We take water from the river. That helps keep, that way we don't bring any fish, any type of large debris into the pump, because that would damage the pump. All right, this compartment we have miscellaneous tools. This ladder is called a Little Giant. Some of you may have one of these at home. Mom and Dad may use it. It goes from 3 feet tall, 3.5 feet tall. You can take them up to about 12 feet. On this side of the board, cutter, small Halligan, a K tool, which is used for locks. We practice with that. Sometimes if a business doesn't have that type of Knox key that we had shown you up where the officer sat, we need to use the K tool in order to do that. And a couple of wrenches, pipe wrenches. If you get out, we've had times where there's been problems with a hydrant that we couldn't get the hydrant open because it had just become stripped, where those are just a good backup to our regular tools. Next board, a couple of shovels. Like I said, this truck will go out on accident sometimes. And when we do put that oil dry down, we pick it up, we'll sweep it up and make sure, try and get everything back to normal as far as things go. Also a sledgehammer. Sledgehammer is commonly used if we need to break something. One of the fun things about being a firefighter is you do get to break things. So when you get older and you get to that age and you have that inclination, come join the firehouse, but we don't get to do that too often. On this side of the board, we have our forcible entry tools. We have 2 axes, as well as what's called a Halligan bar. Halligan bar is one of the most useful tools in the service. We can do many things with it. Prying and opening things is the most common that you'll see. Let me come over to this side. This is our hooks. Different hooks, we use those to pull down ceilings. Sometimes if we need to break a hole in a wall in order to take a look, we were looking to see if there was any type of fire, we will use the hook to get inside of that wall and take a peek at it. And then over on this side, a couple more hooks. They all act differently, and some of us just have different preferences on what we like to use while we're working. Do notice a lot of our tools are painted pink. We're very into the breast cancer awareness movement here at the Royersford Fire Department. Actually, Adam will have to explain that at some point. We're doing different helmet furnaces during the year, so everyone to keep out for that. One last thing in this back compartment, the giant hose clamp. What'll happen is we can put that in order to stop the water flowing on the larger diameter hose. Getting into this compartment, we have salvage equipment. Our salvage equipment are tarps. So if there is a problem in someone's house, we will do everything we can not to damage other things inside the home. So if there's a fire on the 2nd floor, we may go downstairs and cover the furniture on the 1st floor. And that's how we do it, is with tarps. That's our cutter's edge saw. We'll take that to the roof sometimes if we need to do any cutting. It's basically a chainsaw. There's a guard on there. It's also a depth gauge. The depth gauge helps us not to cut too deep into a roof. Sometimes we just want to make a hole in the roof to work in conjunction with the fans that we're using, or we're just trying to get the heat and smoke out of a floor where there's firefighters in working. Next compartment's the engineer's compartment. I'm going to say I'm not very well versed on the engineer's compartment, so I'm not going to be able to tell you a whole lot about it because I do not drive. But the one thing I will tell you is there's backup nozzles in here, different tips for the deck gun up on top of the engine. There are different adapters for different types of hoses. Sometimes if the hoses have specific ends, there's a male end and a female end of the hose. We get somewhere and somebody brought 2 male ends or brought 2 female ends. Sometimes we need to bring an adapter in order to make the change. Or one department has a certain type of coupling on the end of their hose. The other one comes in and would have a different one. This piece of hose actually has an adapter on it because some of the fire hydrants in town have the regular standard thread on it, where the others have the quick connect on it. If the fire truck ever runs out of water, let's come back to the back again. If the fire truck ever runs out of water, we carry what's called large diameter hose. This is the red hose. It's 6 inches in diameter. And what happens is we'll hook this hose up to a fire hydrant and basically gives us an unlimited supply of water. And if the water would, for some reason, not be there because of a water pressure issue, what then we could do is we could always get water from the river through the hose that's up top that Adam showed you from the back. It's up behind the Royersford Fire Department on the side of the truck. That just happens to be the colors that were ordered. There's no rhyme or reason to the colors on this truck as far as the hose colors are on this truck. They just happen to be what was ordered. So that is the only white hose on the back of the truck. The job for this hose, it would be to go and put out a fire. If you look, it's hooked directly into the truck, whereas the red we have, it's got to go a longer distance. It's not meant for a long distance run, quite as long as the large diameter hose is. Another fire extinguisher in here. And if you come up with questions later, don't be afraid to put them on the video, because I'm sure other people have the same questions that you do. This is where the driver sits. Driver's a pretty important job. If we don't have a driver, we're not getting to the fire. And if you look inside the truck, we have men and women that both drive the truck, so you keep an eye out. Sometimes you'll see women driving the truck for us. And there are a lot of switches in there, switches for everything. Very intimidating when you go to sit in there if you don't know where certain things are at. And it takes a bit of training in order to get driving on one of these. This isn't just come in and, hey, I'm going to drive the fire truck today. But it looks just like a regular truck does inside the cab. The only difference is you'll see what's called a power takeoff, a PTO, which allows the power from the engine to go to the pump. We come up to the front of the engine. This is called our bumper line. There's only 100 feet of hose in there. Typically, if we get a dumpster fire, a trash fire, a car fire, the bumper line is what we're going to use for that. Each day it varies. We look at the year or months normally. Year-wise, we do almost 400 a year. So we've been pretty quiet of late. We don't like to say the quiet word in public safety, and I just did. So 406 was last year. Lenny's a numbers guy. So here's what we're going to tell you. Any more questions, please go back and type them in. We'll do our best to answer them, even if we have to type the answers in. Once this all clears up, we are always open to coming by. You can always drive by, honk your horn, and wave if you see us outside. We will always wave back. Have a good one. Stay safe. Keep that social distancing. Make sure you're washing your hands and cleaning off those surfaces.